show brought to you by WP Relax. No matter whether you have an existing site, want to transfer your site, or need to start a WordPress site from scratch, we have a plan to suit your needs. So say bye-bye to WordPress problems and relax with WP Relax.
Hi everyone, this is Ahmed Karimli and welcome to Be Efficient TV. The mission of this web TV show is to boost the efficiency of your business and life through tips and tricks from leading experts. And today I have with me Chris Hexton. He is the CEO and co-founder of Vero. He is an expert in email marketing and email automation. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks very much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure, my pleasure. So why did you study accounting and finance? The first
that's
question.
A good question. Yeah, that feels like a lifetime ago, right? No, I mean, when I finished school, I was looking for something to do, and I had the opportunity to apply for a scholarship basically in that area. So it seemed like a pretty sensible thing to do as someone who was 17 years old. And so I did that and got a cadetship scholarship with Pricewaterhouse and went off to work there when I was 18, which was actually a fantastic experience. And I think that, it's obviously a very sensible career path, right? But there's so much I learned from that in particular. And now I think I take it for granted, my ability to have those basic accounting skills. And I think as a small company, no matter how well or not well you're doing, cash flow is what can kill everything. So understanding where you're at as a business makes a big difference. So I'm glad that I did that, and I have those skills.
So now you know how to do cash flow, balance sheet, income statement. You check on check on the
Absolutely.
Accountants all the time. It's great.
Absolutely.
You cannot make a decision without understanding the numbers.
Well, absolutely.
What's your background before Vero? Like how many years you worked as an employee, and the other companies that you was part of?
Yeah. So I worked for Pricewaterhouse for 3 or 4 years, and then I left there and I went to study overseas for a little bit. And I think that really solidified, what I'd always known, that wasn't the journey for me. Whilst working at Pricewaterhouse, ever since I was a teenager, really, I've always been coding on the side and sort of engineering little projects. So that's certainly where my passion always lay. And so I ended up leaving Pricewaterhouse and starting my own consultancy with James, who's my current business partner as well. And so we sort of set out. We wanted to create a product of our own, but we realized pretty quickly we didn't have the knowledge or the chops to do that. We felt at that stage, so we started working with other people to build new products for them. So we built a lot of software projects, some e-commerce projects as well. More complicated ones where they perhaps have video delivery or interesting aspects as part of their platform for a developer. And so that taught us a lot about how to I think run your own business and how to get business and how to do sales. And although very different to running a product company, I think it gave us a lot of the skills that we needed to start Vero itself. So we did that for about a year and a half after I left, and then we got into an incubator, and that's really where Vero began.
You still doing the consultancy business or just focused on Vero?
No, 100% Vero. So we haven't done that for 3 years now, basically.
Why you picked the email marketing and focused on it?
Yeah. So we got into this incubator in Sydney called Start Mate, as in I'm your mate and I'm going to help you start something. And we weren't originally working on Vero. We pitched that incubator with a lightweight accounting tool that I had built to run our own, accounting and a few other things, but to run our own agency or consulting company. And we got in with that. So we sort of spent the first couple of months there, part of that incubator, trying to go with that product and validate that idea. And it certainly wasn't a fatal business. I think that sort of tool is imperative for any small business, and therefore it's a huge market, and so on and so forth. But we learned that it wasn't growing rapidly, and it wasn't really a problem space we had a lot of passion for. It was something that we built as a utility for ourselves, and used as a vehicle to show the incubator that we had the chops to build something. But when we really got down to it, we sort of said, well, what are we interested in? What other ideas or problems have we encountered working with other businesses that we could solve? And Vero was top of that list of something else we'd found fascinating, where companies obviously want to be sophisticated with the data they have, and and yet they could only really do that with really expensive tools like Responsus or Exact Target, and we had never worked with companies that wanted to use those tools. They were just too big. So we thought, well, there must be a market here for something in the middle, and that's really where the genesis for Vero, where Vero came from. And we started talking to customers, and they got excited, so away we went.
What is Vero?
Yeah, so it's an email marketing platform, and our particular focus is on customer behavior. So it's a tool that allows you to track what your customers are doing in real time on your website, and then send very specific emails based on those actions. So, if you were an e-commerce store, you might say, well, look, someone's looked at the men's shirt category 5 times, but they've never purchased a shirt. Therefore, perhaps the next thing I send them should be related to shirts. Or, if you're a software company, you might say someone signed up yesterday and they haven't installed or used a certain feature. I'd like to send them a specific email. So it's really trying to give you the power to manage those sorts of campaigns and improve upon them.
How Vero records the behavior of the customers and they segment them into different categories?
Yep, so we have an API basically, and most of our customers use JavaScript. So it's very similar to installing Google Analytics Events API, which is the more sophisticated parts of Google Analytics, or Kissmetrics or other analytics tools. So it uses event-based paradigm where you put little snippets of JavaScript on certain pages or on certain buttons to track those granular activities. And that's a very widely accepted practice now, with the rise of companies like segment.com, segment.io as it used to be known. So that's worked really well for us. I think businesses find this event-based tracking very powerful, and we tie in nicely with that. So that's how we record all these things people are doing.
Is the system you have to customize the emails and write them based on the actions or the things that the customers do, and specifically it will send a certain email, or the system also can improvise and to make a specific small email, customize and send it?
Yeah, so that, it's a platform, and if you track your events in a granular way, or the more granular the data you track, the more personalized you can get. But yeah, you can do things like say, okay, well, I want to email someone if they view a product but don't purchase it 2 days later, and you can track data like what the product name is and the category it's in or the price, and you can insert that dynamically in the email. So you can create one email that might send a million different variations if a million different customers look at different products and do different things. So it's absolutely designed to let you do that, at the aggregate level and really power that personalization.
But the emails has to be all written in advance based on these actions. It's not like the system can come up with a mixed email out of, let's say, 3 or 4 emails forms that you have done. It has to be written.
So you have to define the targeting up front, really. But then the email, you could have 3 different campaigns that are all triggered by a user viewing a product, and you might have one that goes out if they've viewed a product 3 times, and a different one that goes out if it's the first time they've viewed it, and a different one that goes out if they've viewed it once but they've previously spent $500. And so you've got that like targeting layer, right, to define which variation they get. And so you can definitely do that. But and as well as that, I guess in the actual templates you can do like if-else statements and have blocks of the template based on what they've done or what properties they have. So you can definitely change the email they see based on their interactions.
How long it takes the customer to get the system and control, being able to use it? Or do you provide any support in that, or like a service that you manage the emails for a while for the customers or for a fee until he gets it?
No, so we've chosen, very much by design to focus on building the best product we can. So, we have support, and we pride ourselves on that support being super responsive and knowledgeable. So they'll, help you with anything from if you've got a bug in your template, tracking the right events, trying to find bugs on your website if you're loading the JavaScript. But they won't go as far as managing your strategy for you. That's certainly a different skill set and ball game. And we have a lot of knowledge on that stuff in-house, of course, because we get to work with so many great companies. But focusing on that and building a great product is a very, very hard challenge for a software company, for a SaaS company. So, at the moment we're working with more and more agencies who love Vero as well, and we often try and recommend those guys to customers who might be looking for more on the managed services side of things. And that seems to work really well because you get these agencies who use Vero again and again, and they know what they're doing and they can provide the right value for each customer.
Can you mention some names of individuals or agencies who do the email strategy or campaigns for some customers?
Yeah, well, I'll mention my favorite, and they also come to mind just because I've been doing some work with them recently. But the two guys who run the agency are called Zvi and Daniel, and they're based out of Melbourne, but they do a lot of work in Israel, a lot of work in New York as well. And their agency is called Data Source, so DATASAUCE, as in source model. So yeah, they're really cool. So datasource.com, I believe, and they've both got a lot of experience working for large consumer companies, growing their own businesses, and yeah, consistently they seem to do really cool work with our customers. So I'd definitely mention their name.
How the A/B testing works in Vero?
Yeah, so one of the cool things about Vero is that you've got these behavioral workflows. So when a user does X, I want to wait for Y, and then send them an email if they haven't done Z. That sort of workflow, right? So one of the unique things you can do is test those workflows, which you haven't been able to do really in email programs before. I mean, you could always A/B test a single newsletter that went out. So Vero allows you to test all of your different campaign types, which is really cool. And I say that's the thing that people appreciate the most. So you can test an actual series of 3 emails versus another series, and you can have a totally different template for that second one. And so the testing, it's all managed in our interface, and something that we're developing more and more and more, because it's it's a unique thing, and it's something that obviously testing is how you find the actual results that work for you. It's all well and good to read stuff and say, well, this worked for so-and-so. That doesn't guarantee it will work for you. So we always try and have that caveat when we're sharing, success stories or companies that we like. Using the A/B testing gets you to the next level.
Who's your main competitors, and how you differentiate yourself from them? What are the services or features that you have that does not exist with your competitors?
Yeah, it's a really good question. There's certainly, email marketing is a competitive space, and there's certainly some other young companies like ourselves. But really, we find ourselves, when talking to customers, I think the biggest competitors are companies like SendGrid and Mailgun. Are considered competitors, where some people evaluating Vero are perhaps doing their own manual triggered emails and using SendGrid or something like that. And the key differentiator there is that Vero adds that layer of being able to manage all the workflows when things are triggered, manage the actual content of the emails, import your templates, run the A/B tests, which is really, as a marketer, that's your job, right? That's the thing you're doing every day. So that's a very powerful differentiator there. And then also, depending on the size of the company, but exact target's another one that we find comes up from time to time, and I think will come up more and more as we grow, although the landscape's changing a bit. And in the case of a provider like Exact Target, the key differentiator is that our software, it's not built around the idea of a list. A lot of these, even MailChimp, right, which we compete with a bit, they're all built around this older concept of customers are in a list, and they might also be in another list. And for a modern company, there's a lot of concern about, well, I don't want people to get 2 emails when they should just be getting 1, and do they belong on both lists? And what if they come back to my site and do something else? I don't want them to get this. Vero is built around the idea of a CRM, so this central database. And every time a customer clicks through from one of your emails or comes back to your site, Vero knows who they are, and it can append what they're doing to their current profile. So that means you can very easily say, well, I only want to send them an email if they don't come back, or if they haven't done this, or if they haven't opened that. So it gives you a lot more power to specify exactly what people get, which is the key difference there.
So it can work with MailChimp, or it has to be replaced because more featured in it to track the site?
Yeah, so some customers use Vero and MailChimp side by side, and you can definitely do that. If you were to do that, you would only be leveraging part of Vero. You'd probably only do the behavioral workflows through Vero. But for most of our customers, they, I would say, graduating from MailChimp, wanting to do more automation than MailChimp can allow, get more specific, and that's why they come to Vero. So most customers don't use them side by side. They would use one or the other, and we're obviously voting for Vero. So yeah.
Don't you think that your system is a bit pricey? How you compare yourself in terms of prices with the competitors?
Yeah, I mean, I think something like MailChimp, obviously the price is a lot more, but as I said a minute ago, we're seeing the customers that are coming across. They're not on MailChimp's free plan or $9 a month plan. They've been using MailChimp for a while. They're now wanting to do more sophisticated emailing, and so they're at a point where they're probably already paying MailChimp hundreds of dollars a month, and they're looking for something that can let them leverage their data more. And so once you get above our base price, which is $99 a month, the prices are very, very competitive. We just have a higher base price, which is at the moment by design. Being a young company and a bootstrap company, it keeps us focused on building the right value for the right people. So it works quite well.
What's the average email open rate now based on how you measure it for your customers? And how to increase it?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, the answer to the first part is I don't actually know. I think I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's a dangerous question. We did a post recently where we analyzed a portion of the emails in our database, 100 million different emails. So that has some answers in there. But, we deal with lots of different customers, and some are selling to consumers, and some are selling to businesses, and some have got, millions of subscribers, and some have got thousands or hundreds. So the open rates can be very, very different. If you're doing B2B marketing and you're selling, you've got a drip campaign to people trying to get them to upgrade to your paid plan, the open rates on that can be extremely different to if you're, a retailer who's, sending an email based on whether someone viewed a certain product category, etc. So, first of all, you need to break it down based on your particular industry. But then there's so many other factors that come into play, like, where on your side are the subscribers coming from, how many subscribers do you collect, what's the sort of life cycle time look like, and so on and so forth. So I would always encourage people to focus on the second part of your question, which would be how do you lift them? And for me, it's not a simple process, but it's a simple process it's not a simple process to lift them, but it is a simple process in terms of how you should approach it. And I always say you've got to look at, if you're sending your campaigns, you send the email, someone opens it, someone clicks it, someone goes back to your site and does something. That's the sort of steps that happen, right? So, I always say you've got to think about that holistically, and your goal is to get more people to do what you want them to do. Whether it be purchase, whether it be come back and log in, whether it be to check out a new feature, building that. It's a whole experience. You're trying to get the customer to have a better experience with your product, which generally involves coming back and actually using your product or, browsing your website. So work back from there. And sometimes having a higher open rate might actually mean less people. Like, you can get a really high open rate if you have a subject line that's like, the sky's red or something really bizarre, right? Most people will probably open that because they think, what the hell is this person on about? That doesn't actually mean that's a subject line that will lead to more conversions. So I always say it's a simple process of, you've got to look at that end number and then step back and say, okay, well, maybe I've got a lot of people clicking through and converting, like maybe that's a really high conversion rate, but I don't have many people opening it. So it is correct to focus on the open rates. And then it's just a matter of running tests and focusing on things there. So, I always think about it in terms of the whole funnel.
In the past couple of years, like, the internet marketers ruined the email marketing reputation, or process, or how you call it. So how many emails we should send without really annoying the people and pushing them to opt out? Yeah,
such a good question and a really interesting comment. In that, I think I don't know I don't want to put words in your mouth, but certainly, the whole internet marketing phenomenon and people doing affiliate stuff, like there is a lot of crap email going around, right? And the customers that do a good job, like at Vero, our core tenet is like it's about building great customer experiences, and email's like a channel, but it's really it's a part of your entire business. It's a very important part, but it's designed. You should be using it to design quality interactions with your business, right? You want your customers to be happy. So our best customers really think about it from that perspective. And the answer to how many emails you send could be anything. I mean, maybe it's one a month. It could be. There could be scenarios where that's the right thing to do. There are other scenarios where it is correct to do it every day. I mean, if you look at a company like Quib.com, Quibb.com, they're not a customer of ours, but they have insanely high email engagement rates, and it's like a news service of sorts, and they have a really good curated daily email, which I'm a big fan of. And in that scenario, sending the email every day is part of this like product experience. If they take that email out, my experience as a customer is a lot worse because I get that email and it's got a nice summary of what's relevant for me based on my network, and then I can click through and interact with their site. So that's like the perfect example of how email should be used, in my opinion, in this modern day and age to cut through the bullshit. And I think more people need to think about it like that. So perhaps for your business, you should only be sending, an email every 2 weeks with product updates that get people to come back and engage. I would certainly say that as a rule of thumb, like beyond 3 emails a week, people are very quickly going to get, generally going to get upset with you, unless it's really critical to that like engagement, habit forming life cycle, like in the case of Quib, and it can add value. So that's my only rule of thumb. Like if you're doing more than 3 emails a week, you should definitely have a good reason for it and have thought about it as a part of your product. But yeah, focus on your customer's experience rather than like volume of email.
In the opt-in box, is it wise to still collect the name or just the email, like email and name, or just the email?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've still seen a lot of cool tests where having the name, increases people's, responsiveness and response rates. I think that people still, even though people are a lot more aware of the fact that emails are automated and cyclical, if you're using them right, like in the case of Quib, it doesn't matter, and still having the name in there is better than not having the name in there. So I think it's generally good, and I don't know for sure, but I think most of the tests I've personally done where I ask for a name as part of any form as well as an email doesn't seem to dramatically reduce rates. So.
And how about when we send the email? Like some people just say hi, some people try to automate it by using the name if they have the names. But because like they worry sometimes about some customers that they have input their name in the wrong way, so they just use hi in the email.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a tricky one. There's always going to be human error. You can always have fallbacks where if it's blank, you don't send anything. But it's I think there's always going to be a small percentage of error where humans are involved entering things. So it's probably something you just have to accept.
From testing the opt-in boxes, like you prefer where in terms of design to put it, like in the right side, in the top, under the header?
Yeah, I think we've tested all of them. They all have varying degrees of success. And again, we always think about it in terms of like maybe having it slide up or pop up or both converts more people. But what gives the customer a better experience? Maybe that really pisses them off, and in the short term it's good, but in the long term it's not. So I think you got to have like some qualitative measure as well as a quantitative one, and so that's hard. I mean, for us at the moment, we're testing having something at the top, and we've tried to be very careful about making the wording of that actually useful. Trying to, because we found talking to customers that more of them wanted to see the power of Vero, and they're like, I love the stuff you're writing on your blog, for example, but I want to, I didn't know for a long time what Vero did, so we're trying to combat that by making it very clear, like, hey, here's what Vero does. If it is of interest to you, you can check it out for free, right? And so it's a lot of thought goes into the copy as well as the placement and the design of that box. Should it be big and bright or subtle, so on and so forth. So I would say there's no correct place. It's worth testing, but when you test, don't only look at the number, ask your customers for their feedback as well, or watch the numbers down the line after people subscribe.
Which opt-in plugin you recommend for WordPress, or is your system comes with a plugin that you just put a code on the site and it will show an opt-in, or you recommend certain plugins for the opt-in?
Yes, no. So we at the moment we're a fan of a company called Gleam, GLEAM.io maybe, or .com. Gleam pop-ups. I'm sure that Google will find it. So you can build forms in Vero, and our JavaScript can help you track when you fill out forms. But I know that Gleam integrates with Vero as well. But it's just a cool product. Very, a lot of control over where they pop up, the design. It's very robust to make sure people don't see things more than once, so you're not annoying. So if you are going to use them, I've seen some people use that, and it's really cool.
Who are your main customers? Like companies, individuals?
Yeah, definitely companies. Small or large, companies are getting the most value out of Vero. Generally, where There's someone who looks after marketing specifically, I'd say is the most common scenario where they've got at least one dedicated marketer. They might not just be doing email, but doing a bunch of things. And that comes back to Vero's, at this point in time, still a sophisticated tool where you're doing really cool, sophisticated stuff. And if you're just starting out and you're just sending a couple of newsletters here and there, Vero's not the tool for you at this point, and I think that's perfectly fine. So the companies that are using us are definitely companies where they've graduated and they've got results and numbers and they want to go to the next level. So enter Vero.
Why asking the customers for feedback after the purchase process is important?
Yeah, I think asking customers for feedback whenever you can is important. So when you ask that question, you sort of mean based on what I was saying before, or just I guess after, if you're an e-commerce store asking for reviews. I guess it depends where in the funnel you're asking them for feedback, but asking people for feedback gives you real actionable information. It's better than a yes or a no, and it's important to look at the metrics. And you need to take the metrics, and you might say, I know that after people purchase, they never tell a friend, or I guess in the case of a review, it would more be saying, you'd look at a metric we don't have any direct referrals for people purchasing. How can we lift that? Or maybe you just our conversion rate could be better on our product page to cart page, right? And so you can know that looking at the numbers, and then you need to say, well, what's my hypothesis for fixing it? And that's where asking questions of customers for qualitative data allows you to say, okay, well, we've talked to a whole bunch of people, and here's what they're saying. So we can use that to form a hypothesis, run the next test, look at the data, ask some more questions, form a hypothesis, and so on and so forth.
What's the best day of the week to send emails?
I think it makes probably no difference. I'm going to say it makes no difference whatsoever. It depends on your business. For something like Quib, which I come back to, Sandy over there did a really cool post at one point a couple of years back about she found that removing the emails on the weekend was really important to her because she's dealing with predominantly business audience. The sorts of articles that are on there are very work focused. So you're reading it during your work day and getting value at that point. It makes perfect sense that no one's going to check it out on the weekend because they're off, having a good time. But on the flip side, maybe if you're, a retailer selling certain types, maybe clothes, right? Maybe Sunday's a great day for you. People are at home and they wake up and they have breakfast and then they want to spend some money and, buy something to look nice. Might be a great day to send an email. So it comes back to this customer experience and what's best for your customer. And looking at the numbers, in Sandy's case, she could see the drop off in opens and clicks on the weekend. So she did an experiment where she took those out and saw how it affected the rest of her metrics for the rest of the week.
How to integrate social media with email marketing efficiently?
Yeah, that's a cool question. I think I guess there's so many angles to that. I think the thing that interests me the most right now is I think there's a lot of interesting, I know Twitter's been playing a lot with these cards where you can subscribe directly to email lists through the Twitter cards. Things like that I find really interesting because that's about the consumer side, and it's how do you give customers a better experience? If they're reading a tweet and it's someone they like, and they want to subscribe right there. I think that's how Twitter's approaching that sort of thing, and I like that. Anything that makes the consumer's life better is ultimately good for the people doing the marketing, in my opinion, because it makes customers happier. So I'd say those sorts of trends are what I find really interesting with social media right now. And then obviously in that case it's direct interaction with email because more people getting on email lists or interacting with businesses, which is of course interesting.
What are the main challenges that you faced at the early stages of starting Vero?
Oh, so many challenges. Now, I think that
is it finance, other things, the developers?
Yeah. No, I think as they say, the only things that matter at any point, in particular at the start, are finding people who have the pain point, are excited enough to buy your software to solve their pain, excited enough about what the solution you're providing, and then listening like crazy to those people and weeding out what's important. You can't build everything, and then building something, and then going back and talking to them, and then listening again, and pattern matching and building something. So, it's very hard to find it can be very hard to find those first people who are willing to trust you and go along with that journey and help you build out the initial versions of your tool. So I'd say that's a real challenge, right? But once you find those people, and if you are solving a real problem, you'll find them. Then it can be hard to stay on course and build the product that's the right product, that's a scalable product that more people are going to want, that's not just going to suit one customer. I think at the moment, because SaaS is so popular, there's a lot of startups, there's a lot of money around to fund startups, that product is really key. Like having something that's actually useful at solving a customer's problem and does it well makes a big difference. And I think that and that is actually a really hard thing to be good at. So practice makes perfect.
How many employees you have now, and how do you market for Vero?
Yeah, right now we're 8, and we should be 10 very soon, which is cool. So I think this is going to be a really good year from that perspective. How do we market Vero? We've always marketed Vero by talking, basically. So we have a blog, and we just try and share cool stuff that interests us. And the theory behind that is, when we started, I was the one doing all of the writing on the blog. But the theory is, as a company, we're interested about this problem space. And so when we see a company do something cool, or if we do something cool ourselves, or if we see a customer do something cool, that's something that gets us excited, because we're interested in how they're solving this problem. And if customers are buying our tool to solve this problem for them, like, they'll get excited as well. So the idea is, if we see cool, interesting stuff, write about it, share it, help people understand the lessons from it, and then they'll get excited. And so that's always been our philosophy, and still to this day how we get all of our customers. Essentially, we have word of mouth important now as well, because the tool does actually solve people's problem or problems. But those two channels are really the key things we do. Focus on building a good product. That means more people will talk about you. And focus on disseminating good ideas about the problem space, which really go hand in hand. So it works very well. Whoops.
Can you share with us your number of customers, the revenues, and you can skip this question?
Well, no, we don't share our revenues at the moment. I mean, customers, as we say on our site, in the order of 300 or so now, and growing pretty quickly. So it's a really exciting time for us. I think what's been most exciting the last 6 months is more and more people are referring people to Vero, and continually getting excited about the tool. So it'll be interesting to see where we're at the end of the year. And that's a big focus for us right now, like making it easier and easier for people to get on board and get started and get value out of the tool quickly and get excited so that they can share it. So yeah, it's a fun time.
Do you have what's your future projects that you're working on currently, and even if it's a development within Vero, to share to some of the viewers?
Yeah, I think there's so many great ideas that we get from customers now. Right at this moment in time, and our customers can attest to this. We're spending a lot of time talking to customers, learning what we could do better in the product we have, and really just trying to nail the product as it is, improve all the UX workflows, improve onboarding, like making things just crystal clear for people, even if they're operating at a really small scale, and give them more ideas around how they can get started, best practices, stuff like that. So that's a big focus for us. Just making the product really, really, really solid. It's already a solid platform and scalable, and customers very much like it. But we hold ourselves to a very high bar. So that's really where a lot of our focus is right now. And then going forward, I think we're very much like, let's get past that over the next sort of 3 to 4, 5 months, and we've got lots of other ideas. But until we talk to people,
let's go more deeper, on a personal level. Can you share with us your daily life and work routine from the time you wake up until you sleep? Yes,
I can. So at the moment I'm based in San Francisco myself. So we just so I've been over here for a little while, and we've got some people that work on the East Coast here, and our head office is in Sydney. So I sort of probably wake up at. So 7. You have
2 offices. Why you moved to San Francisco? Because of the the startups environment and.
Yeah. So just because there's a lot of knowledge. I mean, in America, not necessarily, obviously San Francisco, but not just San Francisco. I mean, just because of pure volume, how many successful SaaS, B2B SaaS companies are there in Australia? There's a number of fantastic companies like Atlassian, Campaign Monitor, BigCommerce, etc. But it's a handful. Maybe there's 20, 30, I don't know. And I think that when it comes to there's great engineering talent in Australia because there's lots of other companies that have like an overlap in that space. But when it comes to knowing how to talk to customers, build out great customer success, product, there's a lot more knowledge in America, in the States, because there's just been so many more companies that have, been successful. So coming over here to grow some of our team on this side of the world makes sense. On top of that, just the practicality of we have most of our customers in North America, so time zones is a big deal, and it just makes it easier for us to be able to give customers a call or answer their emails faster. So that's the main deal. But your original question was like, what's my daily routine? So I sort of wake up at about 7:30, and by that time, there's already people who have sent me emails and want to ask me a bunch of questions from the East Coast because they're 3 hours ahead. So I get to work usually in the morning, have calls with current customers, new customers, potential new customers, and also catching up with the guys on the East Coast, usually about marketing-related stuff.
No
and
breakfast?
Yeah, I have breakfast, but I usually have it at work, and it's usually like, whatever I can get my hands on. And then grab lunch. Yeah, depends who's around and who I'm meeting, but lunch can be a good time to meet and work at the same time, and feel less guilty about doing something nicer. And then in the afternoon, the guys come online at like 2 o'clock. So from, I'd say 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon onwards, Pacific time, I think a lot more about product and catching up with the engineering team and things like that. And then at the moment, work through to whenever I'm needed, and then eat dinner, and then sort of probably work on higher level stuff, and then go to bed.
Do you follow any routine to sleep?
Not really. At the moment, I'm just generally pretty tired from working, so I don't have any big deal with that. But I don't have any particular routine. I would say at the moment I'm in a very poor routine, if we're being honest. Usually I would do a lot more exercise, which is something that I'm not doing much of at the moment. It's very sporadic, which is very important. So the lesson would be do what I usually do, not what I do now. So, I'd usually exercise multiple times per week.
What are your other hobbies?
Yeah, good question. So travel would be a big one. Unfortunately, as we grow, a lot more chance to visit team members, visit customers, and then, meld holidays into that. So travel's probably, I think that could be a hobby, right? What else? I play guitar, so music's a big hobby and a good way to chill out. I play a lot with my brother, so that's cool. And yeah, other than that, food, I would say food. So eating out. If I don't have a lot of time, so like meals are a good chance to do something interesting. So I would, I like cooking as well, but certainly eating out is definitely a hobby per se.
With the A/B testing, you do the cooking, or how you do it?
Sorry, so the A/B testing cooking.
Like-
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, in a way, right? Like get people around and see what they like the most.
What are share with us some of the tools or softwares that you use that makes you more efficient?
Yeah. So what tools do I use to make me more efficient? I would say, I just have my phone here. I'm just thinking about what makes I like email. Like I know there's a lot of stuff out there that's like don't look at email before midday or something. Email is my life, right? Like customers email me, team people add things in Trello or email me. People call me, but email is like the central. It's like the routing queue of what the hell's happening next. And so at the moment, I've been using the Outlook email app a lot. That's a lifesaver. And off the back of that, I use a tool that plugs into Gmail called Sane Inbox, SANE, Sane Inbox, keep you sane. And it's really good at like learning which emails matter and which ones don't, and putting the ones that don't in a whenever folder, I call it. And then I can get to them. I mean, in my case, I try and get to them once every 2 days or once every night, but that's because that's maybe a bit extreme. They're sort of emails you can leave for a longer period. So I find that very, very, very useful. You can also like email it back and say, remind me of this in 2 weeks. And that's really handy as well. So that's a big part of it.
So those are like, let's say, the top three apps on your computer and on your app on your phone.
Yeah, what else? Fantastical is a calendar app. Fantastical, and that's now owned by Google, I think, but maybe it's not. It's really cool. It sits in the menu bar, and you can like, I can say I'm going to meet you, for example, at X time, GMT +4 or whatever the time might be, and it'll send you the invite in the right time zone and work it out for me. That's very useful. Cloud app is a little thing that sits up there, and you can like share screenshots and stuff. I use that a lot. And there's actually an app that I've been using on my iPhone called, it's terrible, well, I think it's a strange name a little bit, but Workflow with a Y, Workflowy. It's a to-do list, but it's like nested to-do list. You really got to play with it to get it. Workflowy, it's a wicked app, so I use that a lot as well.
Top three mentors.
Okay, good question. There's a guy in Australia called Nicky Shabak who founded the incubator that we went through, StartMate. He and I get along very well. He's got very pragmatic advice, which I always appreciate. So I'd say he would be up there. Then there's a pool of other great mentors from that program that I still keep in touch with, maybe 5 or 6 of them. But I guess if we're looking for top 3, as a pool, they're excellent. So maybe that's one. My father, actually, he's never started his own company, but was heavily involved in the growth of a company that was very successful, and so he learned a lot of practical insights from that. And he started life as an accountant as well, so he's got a lot of practical advice around finance and hiring and management and stuff that really matters once you start to grow. And that it's not the sexy Silicon Valley how to raise money type mentoring, but it's the actual like how to run the show mentoring, which for me is always more valuable. So he's definitely a great mentor as well.
Top 3 people that you're inspired by.
Yeah, cool. So I would say, I think everyone's got to say Elon Musk at the moment, just for having a lot of balls. So I'm going to say that. There's a guy, the guy who founded Chobani Yogurt, whose name I forget, I apologize, which sounds strange, but Chobani, Chobani, is a big yogurt thing in America. Like, they got their own stores, and you can buy it at 7-Elevens, and it's everywhere. Just ridiculously successful company, and inspiring, because who would have thought that in a period of less than 10 years you could build a yogurt company of all things that makes billions, squillions of dollars, and great distribution model, over 1,000 employees. The guy came to America, had absolutely nothing, built this from the ground up. Just, I like it because it's not in the tech space, and it's in an industry that you wouldn't have thought you could compete with Yoplait and other yogurt manufacturers, right? And yet just crushed it. I find that really cool. So Chobani Yogurt, Hamdi, I think Hamdi is his first name, and then his last name Ulukaya or something like this. And he tweets and stuff, so it's cool. So that's 2, and then who else? Who else do I really like? I'm trying to think of someone a little outside the box. It's not usual techie stuff. That's a good question. I mean, there's lots of people who have other SaaS companies that I find really they have a lot of admiration for as well. And in that case, I tend to like people who have I'm a big fan of companies like Atlassian or Campaign Monitor, which are Australian companies, incidentally, but that's by the by. They're just really, really companies with really great like core metrics and really happy customers, and just tremendous growth because they built something really good. And they're companies that have been around for 10 plus years. They still grow like 50 to 100% a year at scale, like $200 million to $300 million in a year revenue, like ridiculous stuff. And I find that longevity is really inspirational.
If you're starting Vero today, what would you focus on more to be at this point where you are now to save time?
Yeah, I think that I would. So when we started, we were very lean. It was just the 2 of us, and we definitely focused very correctly on talking to customers early and not building until they were happy. but I think I'd focus more on the thought leadership. You know, we started with the blog and it's always done very well, but you could almost blog for like a year, right, before you built anything. And that process would do two things. It would allow you to find your voice as a company, like your brand, if you will. Probably do three things really, but certainly it would allow you to do that, and it would really open up this channel of customers you can talk with, because people are going to find it, and if they're interested, they're going to subscribe, and you can now have a conversation with them. And that will in turn mean you can learn more about what their problems are. You can share more of your alpha, beta stuff with them. Create a great feedback loop to actually talk to companies and learn from it. So I think I'd focus more on that, you know, building up that I guess inbound marketing channel, because it just allows you to do the lean stuff so much faster, and I think it would allow you to release a more polished product sooner, or certainly a product that hits the nail on the head and really really have nailed that vision from the word go. You know, which I think can be very powerful to have from the beginning, rather than working it out as you're going along. So that's probably what I'd do different.
Top 3 factors for success in 3 words.
Well, I think the top factor in tech and in software anyway, I don't think this applies to all industries. You know, making yogurt, you probably need some big machines, but you know, one of the great things about software is that the overheads are low, right? 2 people can do a lot, and it really comes down to hard work and being focused. You know, you don't need a big, sexy, fancy office on day one. You don't need 100 people for most software concepts. You can build a tiny little version and get 10 people using it with very little, you know, just a lot of pragmatism and a lot of hard work. And so I think that's the key. You know, I think, well, for me anyway, it is what I feel most comfortable with. And that's how you build something that actually is robust, in my opinion, right? Like, as opposed to, you know, it's exciting, and I've only lived one journey, right? But it's, you know, I think it would be exciting to raise $2-5 million from day one, you know, whatever, and have all that sexy stuff. But I think you're probably better off really building a robust machine and then raising capital or doing whatever it is you want to do to grow faster. And I think the best way to do that is to be really focused on your customers and that tight feedback loop and working hard.
What are the habits that you're trying to develop to stay efficient?
Yeah, so I think a company at our stage, like, it's all about process, and it's all about empowerment really, and process can help with that. So if everyone on the team feels like they can do something today without, you know, they're being pushed back, or without having to have meetings, or without, you know, they feel empowered to take the next step, then the whole thing moves a lot quicker, and that's efficiency, right? So it, you know, comes down to trust. It comes down to being able to disseminate information so people have what they need to make a decision. It comes down to people understanding that I guess that comes back to trust. Like, their decision will be respected, right or wrong, and having that attitude that you can't fail in a negative way. You can fail, and we can learn, and then we can succeed. And that comes down to people believing in themselves and believing that everyone else trusts and values their judgment. And so I think that's very, very important. I read a book a while ago. Actually, I sound like I should sponsor that book, but the book's called The Speed of Trust, and how if people have that empowerment, basically everything moves faster. And I think the further we grow, the more I agree with that.
Top 3 favorite books?
Do they have to be nonfiction?
As you like.
Okay.
Nonfiction,
Well,
fiction, yeah.
Yeah, I would say that one is definitely one. The Speed of Trust. In terms of books I've read in the last year and a half, anyway, or year. What else have I read recently that I really liked?
So you're more of a fiction reader than non-fiction to relax, or?
Yeah, so I think I get most of my, like, I've never read The Lean Startup because I read the first 25% of it and felt like it was an excellent book, but it's talked about so much. And I've seen so many talks on it, and I've seen Eric Ries speak about it, that, like, I didn't feel like I was getting more from reading that. So I tend to, like, when I read a book, I read it for escapism almost from work, because the rest of the time, I feel like I can get a lot of that information from the internet these days. So fiction and the news are probably things that I read. Having said that, there's still a lot of books that I'd like to read that are non-fiction that are coming up. Like, I haven't read The Hard Thing About Hard Things yet, and there's a lot of books that people are like, you have to read this. So I do find time to do that when I can. Sorry.
How do you change your mood when you're depressed?
Well, exercise is a good thing. That's probably the most practical, the easiest fix if you can bring yourself to go do that, go for a run or something. And then short of that, it's just remembering that, like, any problems that I'm having day to day are pretty first world problems. You know what I mean? Like, I think myself and most people I know live extremely fortunate lives. So I always just think, what are you actually depressed about? Is it like a customer's upset or, some fire at work usually, right? And it's probably not the end of the world. That's always a good perspective to remind yourself of.
Best advice that you have ever received?
Best advice that I've ever received? I don't know. Now I'm trying to think of something like succinct, you know what I mean? But I feel like the best advice I've ever received is that, like, I don't know, a lot of people say keep going, and like not when smart people say that to me, I always like that, and they always say it with the angle of like, don't be stupid and like bash your head against the wall for 10 years. That is stupid. But like, recognize that some things take time and that you need to see a hypothesis through, whatever that might be. Like, you might say, look, I think our business is going in this direction. It's not going to happen overnight. So you've got to be patient and you've got to put hard work in for a period of time, and then you can make a call as to whether that did or did not work. And so that attitude of like, keep going, be strategic, make a decision, see it through, make the next decision. That's probably pretty good advice. It's served me well so far.
What would you advise your younger self if you can?
Not too much. I think keep going. The younger self did all right so far, and I would say, I don't regret any. I don't regret doing the accounting thing or doing the consulting thing. Like, everything, I learned something from everything I've done that I use day to day now. So, I think that maybe think bigger. When you're younger, I think it can take a lot of time to build up the courage to do your own thing and to really believe in it. And I'm always impressed with, particularly San Francisco. There's many young people, crazy young, who are like, wildly ambitious. I think that's it took me a lot longer to develop that level of ambition.
What makes you really happy?
Creating stuff and like creating stuff that makes other people happy. And I think design's a big part of that. I'm not a designer, but I love it. I think design in the sense of like creating an experience for someone. And that's the part of Vero that fascinates me the most, is like that. How do you create a great customer experience as part of marketing? So I would say, design and like design experience, experience thinking, design thinking is creating something, seeing how it affects someone and put a smile on their face. Probably what makes me the happiest.
You're a coder? You consider yourself as a coder?
I'm going to say yes. Not a great one. Team hates if I push code now, but I can hack stuff together. So I'm a coder in the sense of like, I'm a problem solver, and if the problem's presented, the unique thing about coding, for example, it would be very hard for me to learn Arabic in a room by myself because I can't speak it and then say, I got that right. I need a friend who can say, oh, you pronounced that wrong, or, that's just the wrong word. You don't use that in this context. So learning languages, for example, is very hard. But learning coding, I can sit in a room with a computer and I can write something and I can see the result. And if it's wrong, I can write something else and see the result. And so I can teach myself the patterns of success. And that's fascinating. So I am a coder in that, like, I'm a big believer in that mindset, and I get frustrated. I think that's what defines.
And at least you can check on the team. You understand what they are doing. They cannot fool you.
That makes a good difference, a big difference as well. Yeah.
Last question: how people can contact you?
Yes, please do. Chris@getvero.com, or on Twitter, see Hexton, Chexton. So, any questions, I'm more than happy to help anytime. And those are the email is a good way to get hold of me, because I will write back. I live and breathe by the email.
Thank you so much, Chris, for this experience. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Thanks very much for having me. Really awesome. Great questions.
Thanks, everyone. Be efficient and stay efficient, and see you soon with another leading expert.